Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Michelle, and today I want to share with you the things that surprised me after my first year of homeschooling. So if you're new here, I have a 9, 5, 2-year-old, homeschooled my 9 and 5-year-old this past year. It was our first year. And there were definitely some things that surprised me on our first journey of homeschooling that I thought I would share with you guys in case you're new here. So, number one thing that I would say ultimately surprised me going into homeschooling is that the amount of closed-mindedness I would encounter. And perhaps this was just because I was naive to homeschooling. Now, we did do gap schooling before we ever homeschooled. My oldest was in public school, kindergarten through 2nd grade. But we would do things during the summer and breaks to kind of fill in the gaps that the pub school was leaving. So that we've always done some type of schooling at home. But this is our first year fully doing it. And I have to say, I was really surprised with how much closed-mindedness I encountered. I figured that if you were willing to pull your kids from public school or not put them in public school at all, that you're already a rebel. You're already going against the norm. So you would be more open to maybe other people's ideas or opinions. I was definitely wrong with that. As I have said, encountered a lot of homeschooling groups that kind of segregate themselves into their little groups of what they believe, what they think, their opinions. It could be teaching style, teaching philosophy, educational philosophy, things like that, where unless you fit into that exact group, you're not welcome. And I found that really shocking because I feel like as homeschoolers, we have a great opportunity to learn a lot from one another if we could just be loving, kind, and accepting of each other's ideas. And that is not what I've encountered personally. And it could just be, the area I live in. I know probably in larger areas, there's probably a lot more diversity and opportunity out there. But for me, and it's not just, I would say the religious aspect of it, because if you're new here, I am Christian, Lutheran, ELCA, but I choose secular curriculum. I have a whole bunch of videos on that if you're curious. It's not just the religious aspect, people dividing themselves on that. I have seen judgment from both sides. I've seen judgment in the religious groups. I've seen judgment in the secular groups. I've seen that if you're not a certain type of Christianity that group is, or you don't adhere to their certain beliefs, they don't want you part of their group. I've noticed that in certain secular groups, if you mention at all that you are somehow faith-based, and they don't want to hear about it. They don't want any discussion of religion at all, which I can understand. I've been burned by some homeschooling Christian groups, so I get it. But that is no excuse to do what that group is doing too, to say, no, we don't allow that type of thinking. And maybe it's because I straddle both worlds, where I am a faith-based person, but I choose secular curriculum, so I can see the nastiness on both sides. And it's just really unfortunate because I think, as I said before, we're all homeschoolers. We all have an opportunity to learn from one another. And I think the biggest lesson I want my children to ever learn is that we should be kind, accepting, and loving people to one another. And that isn't always easy within the homeschooling community when there's such turmoil and disagreement within ourselves. So that really surprised me, that how many just closed-minded, narrow-minded people I would encounter. The second one is, this one's kind of funny. I really don't enjoy spending all of my time with my children. I love my children. They're the greatest gift I could ever have. But I'm a person that has to have alone time to myself. I don't like really crazy, chaotic environments. I grew up in that, and it's kind of like an anxiety trigger for me. So I need time to myself in a quiet environment. And having my children around me 24/7 is an adjustment, and I'm not gonna lie, it's difficult at times. I don't always want to have everything around me all the time, especially with things like school. We have to get that done. I still have all the chores and everything else I have to do. It's just a lot to juggle in the air. But I was surprised how irritated my children became to me at certain points, just because it's always there. And for a while there was that 6-7 hour time span where my daughter was in public school, where I could have that time to myself to nurture my interest and hobbies and to really just focus. And it's definitely a lot harder to do that when they're around you all the time. Number 3, the thing that surprised me was the cost. I assumed there'd be a cost. I actually estimated I'd spend around $800. And I have a budget video I can link up above as well to show you how I broke down and what I actually spent. I think I spent closer to $1,400. And again, some of that was just because we're new and we hadn't quite figured out what to do yet. But it's a cost, and a lot of people will tell you that you can homeschool very cheaply, and I think that's true for the younger grades especially. But as your children get older and require different things, the price is a concern. Curriculum isn't always cheap, things like that. So we definitely spent more than I anticipated, but I'm more prepared next year knowing how much we spent. The number 4 thing that really surprised me is how much I'd be influenced by other people's choices, homeschooling choices. Now, like I said, I don't have a big homeschooling community in my area. None of my friends, family homeschool. So I definitely looked on social media for kind of ideas, thoughts, opinions people had on things, and that probably wasn't the greatest idea. It's actually why I had to leave Instagram, just because I found it too fake and pushing products and different curriculums and things. But you look on these channels and you see a certain curriculum portrayed or people's opinions on it, and I feel like a lot of times people are either pushing curriculum that they are affiliated with, or for whatever reason that specifically ticks a box for them, and it's the best curriculum for that. And realizing that just because it works for somebody else does not mean it works for you. There is a specific curriculum, I will link my review of it above, The Good and Beautiful, where I bought it multiple times even though it wasn't working for our family, because I kept seeing everyone talking about how great it was and how wonderful it was working for their family, and it didn't work for my family. And I was really surprised how influenced I was about other people's opinions. They're pretty much on social media, Instagram, YouTube, things like that, about their opinions on curriculum, when really it's my opinion how it will work for my family and my kids. So learning that. The 5th thing that surprised me was the amount of personal support I would find. So again, I was brand new to homeschooling. None of my friends, family, anyone I knew homeschooled, but everyone in my personal life has been very supportive. I've actually encountered no negativity within my personal life of people having an issue with homeschooling or thinking it was weird. Maybe it was the last 2 or 3 years of the pandemic. Everything's been weird, but people close to me understand that I am a very serious person, especially when it comes to education, how serious I take my children's education, how they know I will do the best job that I'm capable of, and there's no question of that. So I was really surprised that nobody really thought it was weird or questioned me on it, but it's been nice. The last thing that really surprised me on our first year of homeschooling is that how much I would learn with my children. So I grew up in the public school system, K through 12, I was in the public school system. So I was really, I probably got more of a biased, narrow-minded education, just being in the public school system with that, but a decent education, I would say. But going through like history, especially math with my children, I realized how much I missed out on, especially in history. You're definitely given a certain perspective in public school of history, and just exploring those ideas and what really happened and looking at factual things has been really, really interesting. And I was never a big history person before this, but I found it really enlightening to learn these things alongside my children. It's like a second chance at my own education. And it's funny because going into homeschooling, I really perceived myself as teaching my children something when really we're journeying, we're doing this together. It's something we are learning together. So that has been probably one of the best positives that has come out of homeschooling, is that I am also a lifelong learner. So those are the things that really surprised me about homeschooling, and I would love to hear what is something that surprised you about homeschooling when you started, because I bet there's some probably really interesting perspectives and opinions on that. So if you have any questions, leave them down below. If not, thanks for watching.